Hi everybody, we're on an outing to the souk, so we all did a little shopping. I bought this for my daughter Carrie's dollhouse, which I think is cool. And then I bought Ellie a mosque-shaped alarm clock, and the alarm does the call to prayers. So when she has to get up and go to school, she's going to really appreciate this. So anyway, I'm here with all my new friends who are the journalists on this trip, and I interviewed them a little earlier today. I think I was annoying because they needed to file their reports. I'm sorry. I'm kidding. Yes, I was annoying. But here are the interviews I conducted a little bit earlier. Okay. This is the press corps traveling with Secretary Gates, and we're going to do a few interviews here. You just tell me your name, who you work for.
My name's Andrew Gray. I work for Reuters.
Hello, Andrew.
Dan Deleuze, and I'm with AFP, the French news agency.
Introduce yourself and tell us what fine paper you represent.
I'm Tom Shanker. I'm with the New York Times. I cover the Pentagon. Hello.
You're eating a cookie. I'll come back to you.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
I'm Donna Miles, and
Hi,
I'm with
Donna.
the American Forces Press Service.
Chris Lawrence, and the Pentagon correspondent for CNN.
Greg Jaffe, Washington Post.
I'm Al Pessin. I'm the Pentagon correspondent for Voice of America.
So, hi.
Hi.
This is Laura. Not pronounced Lyra, but Laura, right?
It's Laura, but I've been called so many things over the years.
And your last name is
Jakes.
Jakes, that's right. And Laura works for the Associated Press and has worked for the AP for how many years?
For 7 years now.
7 years. Before that, she worked for the Albany
Times Union.
Thank you. See, I have a good memory.
Little shout out to Albany.
Yeah, and so, gosh, you've been covering the Pentagon. Well, you've been at the AP for a long time, but not at the Pentagon
Right.
that long.
I'm a newbie at the Pentagon. I
And
just started in January.
And what other things did you cover for the AP?
I covered the Justice Department for
Oh,
several years.
that's right, yeah.
And I covered Homeland Security for several years.
And how does the Pentagon compare to those beats?
You get out a lot more. This is my first overseas trip with the Secretary, but I like traveling, so it's nice to get out and to run around and to get on the ground and see actually Washington. You sit around sometimes and you write about things where you've never been on the ground. And the thing I like about the Pentagon is being able to get out and see what you're actually writing about, as opposed to policy that is a little more,
wonky.
Exactly.
So how long have you been covering the Pentagon?
I'm a newcomer.
Really?
Just since February. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
What did you do before that?
Well, I was abroad for a long time. I was in Iran and in the Balkans and other places.
And so, is it weird being at the Pentagon, or?
It is strange and interesting all at the same time.
So you're living in the Washington area now?
I'm living in Washington, having grown up in California, and it's strange and interesting, and it's its own world, and it has its own acronyms and jargon.
I know. I covered the Pentagon for a year. It took me that long to figure out all the acronyms. Is it kind of boring, though, after living in Iran and living all over the world to cover the Pentagon?
It's not, actually. It sounds like it might be, but it's not.
I just find it very gratifying. There is a story. There are myriad stories every single day. It never dries up. And when there's not a big policy issue going on, when there's not a big event, there are the personal stories that are just awesome, and they're so fun to tell.
Well, I love the Pentagon beat because it's a Washington beat. You can live a relatively normal life, but it has a worldwide scope. So it's been really interesting for the last 5.5 years.
Is it a big difference covering the Defense Department under the Obama administration versus the Bush administration, or is it just too early to say, Tom?
Yeah, I think the continuity is Secretary Gates. Since he's still there, there's a phrase in the military called commander's intent, and Gates hasn't changed even though the president has. I think the president kept Bob Gates on because of his policies and his attitude and his approach to things. So for those of us who cover the Pentagon, things haven't changed a lot, and as far as when we call the White House to ask questions, nothing has changed there because they still don't talk to us.
Now, meanwhile, Gates is really kind of the anti-Rumsfeld, isn't he? I mean, talk about a diametrically opposed personality, don't you think?
That is a question we hear a lot. I guess my take is a little bit, not counterintuitive, but a little bit different. I think Gates and Rumsfeld are very much alike in that they're very patriotic. They both serve out of a sense of public service, not for money or personal gain or anything else. I think history will not be kind to Rumsfeld because he made some decisions that clearly were wrong. And I think a classic example of the difference between them is Rumsfeld brought sort of a CEO's view to the Pentagon. He wanted to manage it, do it efficiently, and thus for the war in Iraq, he wanted to do it with the lightest footprint possible, move the least equipment possible. That's fine from a manager standpoint, but we're talking about war here. Secretary Gates, on the other hand, I talked to him once about the $20 billion he spent on MRAPs, the armored vehicles, and I said, you know, we may never need them in another war. He said, I don't care.
You were recently in Iraq and you spent 5 weeks there, and Laura told me earlier that they were the best 5 weeks of her life. No, not that they weren't really interesting, but what was it about Iraq that you found so fascinating?
Well, the culture was part of it, and trying to see where.
Oh, that's
this-
lovely. Thank you, Chris.
You want to see me brushing my teeth as well?
Sneezing on, man.
You're interrupting our interview, mister. Okay, go ahead.
Try to keep the sneezes down.
Okay, go ahead.
I just think the storyline of Iraq and where it's going to go over the next couple of years, not only as the U.S. draws out and draws down, but also you've got this new democracy in this very crucial part of the world, and it could go anywhere at
I was
this
going to say
point.
very fragile, too.
Right, we just don't know where it's going to go, what's going to happen, and that's kind of exciting. We're kind of watching history being made.
What do you see as the biggest change, or do you see a change yet in sort of the approach of the Obama administration toward military affairs, or do you think it still has stayed pretty consistent because of Secretary Gates?
I think it stayed fairly consistent. I mean, the biggest shift is that all of a sudden we're taking Afghanistan and Pakistan a lot more seriously after not taking it very seriously for the last 7 or 8 years.
Were you ever writing pieces like, hey, what about this forgotten war? Because it seemed like even the press kind of forgot about Afghanistan for a period of time when Iraq was really heating up, and understandably so, but still.
No, I wish I had been. You know, I don't think I was. I think I took my eye off it like everybody else, you know. We were focused on what the big story was, and Iraq was melting down.
So, what did you do last night?
Last night, after the reception with the secretary, we went to the pyramids to see the Sound and Light show.
Oh, and I just love his accent, don't you guys? I mean, I could listen to you
They
all
hate
day.
it. They've had enough of it.
Are you tired of it?
It's getting old for these guys.
What would you say is the biggest difference between the two deaths?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
It is, Al, but that's why I get paid the big bucks.
In public settings, like in press conferences, Secretary Gates is somewhat more forthcoming. In private settings, they're both very gregarious and engaging and have amazing stories to tell from their very long public service careers, but they're all off the record, so I can't tell you the stories.
If you did, you'd have to kill me.
I might.